we'll see. Those of you who know, I used my phone before. Often in the middle of it, if you've got a phone, you get little messages come up, you know, and I'll say a little bit about Brexit in a moment, because nobody said it yet, and I think somebody needs to mention it. And invariably what happens is I get a little message from my son, but you'll be pleased to know the message from my son arrived about an hour ago. He obviously has got huge faith in me because he was terribly disappointed the weekend he didn't get Glastonbury tickets. So he said, while you're at the event, can you find out if anybody has contacts in Glastonbury? So there we are, just a small task. So on top of all the things you've been hearing today, that's my task. I don't like to disappoint. I've gone back and said, I don't think I can help here, but I'll have a think. But still. Anyway, firstly, a huge welcome to Farnborough again. For those of you who don't know, this investment here, this building used to be a temporary building that had to go up every 2 years and taken down every 2 years of costs of millions. And actually, one of the things that we did as a LEP, along with Rushmore Borough Council and Hampshire County Council, it did something very, very innovative. And we worked with Barclays on a loan that helped build this. Now, actually, it has gone from strength to strength. We've got this event here today. We've got a 2-day Women's Expo next week. If you're interested, come and speak to me, with 5,000 people expected to come through the doors. And actually, it's also built its name up for something around e-skills. So you get hundreds and thousands of people coming here to watch e-skills. Now, why do I start with that? The reason I start with that is about innovation. And I think innovation is one of the key things. It's a strength we've got, and I think that is one of the key things that we've got to start thinking about, because actually I found myself nodding throughout all of this. I don't know what the answers are, but I found myself nodding about some of the things we need to happen. Don't tell him, but I didn't press the timer button, so I've got a bit more time. Now, I've not got a load of PowerPoints because actually I found, as I thought would happen, a lot of people have already covered the bits to do with the economy, but I do want to land a couple of messages. The first message I want to land is just, I suspect there are still some people here who don't know about local enterprise partnerships, and probably less of you know how the local enterprise partnerships work together. So I'm not here, actually, sorry, Dave, representing Enterprise M3. I'm more here representing the Southern LEPs that are working with Transport for South East in such an effective way. And that includes ourselves, obviously, South East LEP, Coastal Capital, Solent, Enterprise M3, and Thames Valley Berkshire. And how we work with that organisation is 2 of our board members, and I think Martin is here today from Coastal Capital, and Ross McNally from our board, from Hampshire Chamber, sit on the partnership board at the moment. That's a real feat. You've got 2 LEPs representing 5, so you have to work really, really closely together. And what a role of a LEP is, and how I always express it, is about fostering the conditions for business to flourish. Businesses need to flourish because they need to create wealth. And I haven't heard the word wealth a lot today. And the danger in some of these types of events is that business gets a really, really bad name. Believe me, if I was with a group of businesses here today who work across this big area, they are concerned about these things in the same way and thinking about tackling them as well. But actually, we're going to need some wealth to do this and make sure it happens so that it goes down to individuals. And I think Alan is absolutely right about the points about restraints. I think this whole area is a huge area of opportunities, because what we have got here, whether it's within our universities or whether it's within the companies, and just look at the list of sponsors here, and if you don't know these are world-class in terms of the work they're doing on research and looking into things. We've got some of the answers here that we can pull it together, and we could make wealth from that. And that would trickle down to individuals, and I think that's something that we need to be thinking about. So one of the things, as a group of LEPs, we work in that group of 5. We also work as a group within Innovation South. Actually, that then extends over to include Dorset. We have a group of LEPs that are working along the coastal strip, because you've picked up today some of the issues there, both in terms of deprivation, but also in terms of the extreme strength, particularly in the marine and maritime industry. And we work as actually a strong group of Southern LEPs, working also with Hertfordshire, also with the Oxford and Cambridge Arc. And the point I want to make about that is that's important, because actually we sometimes get stuck within boundaries. Businesses don't work in boundaries. They look across the whole piece, and we need to think about how we link up across the whole piece. And then finally, I want to mention London, because again, I've not heard a lot about London. London is really, really significant for the economy. We have to, in some ways, protect London, because actually I know just from talking to businesses and how businesses flow, London is so important. We need to watch it doesn't drain us, but actually it is important. One of the slides I found slightly amusing that Hertfordshire have used, because one of the things we've been doing as a group of LEPs, which involves Hertfordshire, is thinking about how the area work. And they had their AGM this week and presented this map. And it made me smile. I'll come to the bit in the middle in a minute. And Rupert, it made me smile when you showed the thing about gas emissions, because, you know, what is this telling you? And I'll tell you what it's actually showing you in a moment. But actually, you know, is that a whole range of fires burning and it's a bit, we're all doomed? Or is it sort of lights of opportunity because it's running in corridors and that light? It is actually showing intra-commuting flows around London and demonstrating actually, and I think it's quite interesting hearing about the things we heard this morning about radio routes. Actually, we've got more and more movement between individual towns, and certainly some work we've been doing, and I know Coaster Capital have been doing something similar, is looking at the linkages between towns and how they work. And I think this is a really good example about how the work that the LEPs are doing in terms of economic strategies feeds directly in to Transport for South East. So one of the things we have to do is we have to produce a strategic economic plan. So there'll be 5 of those for those LEPs in the Transport for South East area, and we're working on a local industrial strategy. And so all of those need to come together, and we're working particularly with Hearts to actually try and pull that together into a document which gets across what we need to do. And I've only got 2 minutes, so I'm going to have to speed up. Now, the important bit there is London, because actually, is that London, nothing's happening, or London's a threat? Because it looks a bit ominous the way it's written, but it's just I think for me, this is a really good discussion point because it starts to get across some of the issues we face. Now, one of the things I also want to bring up is, I'm going to say Brexit again, that's twice I've said it now. The role that the LEPs are now playing, and we as a LEP lead a group of 4 LEPs. The country's been divided up into clusters. It was done very, very quickly. I literally had 2 days' notice this was happening. It only started on the 1st of September. And this is all about helping businesses prepare for leaving the EU. So we have worked at speed to get out and talk to businesses about what they are doing to prepare for Brexit and what they particularly need to prepare for leaving the EU, but also thinking about what happens after we've left the EU and helping businesses cope with that, and actually thinking about some of the issues. And that's exactly where our local industrial strategies fit, and the work with Transport for South East. Because this is about, that is where we've got to take our future. We've got to take our businesses into that place and be really, really innovative, because we are going to have some impacts and we need to minimise that as much as possible. And some of the key issues that are coming through already around international gateways, exports, skills and connectivity. Right. Now, let's just move on now and think about some of the things we need to do. We need to think about growing. I see that, growing in a sustainable way, the economies, to create that resilience. One of the strengths we've got here is the resilience of our economies as we move forward, but we need pace. We need to think about the issues to do with the environment, which you've heard a lot about today, but also inclusivity. How do we involve more of the people who live here in what's going on? But we also need, I think, and I've again not heard a lot of it today, ambition, willingness to take risks, innovation, looking at investment, looking at new ways of working, because I totally get what Keith says about evidence. I totally get about one voice. But actually, we need to, particularly in the current climate, go with something that's really, really appealing. So I think we need a shed load of action to take some of these things forward. I'm not sure what those things are, but we need some work on doing that. I'm not going to cover all the things to do with the economy because you've heard a lot already. I do want to say we've got a lot of assets here. So I know this is about how we make the South East better. Actually, we need to remind ourselves how good we are, and there's a lot of things going, but we need to protect that. We need to think very carefully about how we preserve the sectorial strengths we've got here and the businesses we've got here, because there's a huge amount of opportunities in there, particularly around that whole digital piece and linked into what's going on. And then thinking just quickly around TFSE and what I would be looking for them to do is accelerating that innovation. We need to think about how we link people and the skills bit into that, because that's really quite critical. What do we do around employment land and where that's positioned? And I think we're going to have to think quite carefully about focus, which might lead to some very difficult decisions in terms of how we support housing, how we support those international gateways, what we do about health, because health actually is coming through big time in our economic strategies, because it's all about healthy workforces and what we need to do. I think I'm going to stop there because you're giving me the evil eye down there. I can see it. And I'm going to end by saying the critical things for me that we need to be thinking more of. And I have to say, and I've said it to Rupert and others earlier, I love the passion from this morning and I totally support it. We need more of that in that document. That passion's not there at the moment, but we need more of that in the document. But I want to see things about smart mobility, digital connectivity, changes in behaviour and environment, and they're all joined up and linked together. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Kathy.